If I
We're
check
recording.
out.
Go.
All
I'm hitting
right,
something
everybody, welcome to the team call. It is so awesome to have you guys here tonight. I'm going to tell you, when you're not on live, you miss the magic. You miss all of the behind the scenes stuff and the real nitty gritty. It's kind of like the difference between like Instagram life and real life, you know? It's being on the recording versus, or being on live versus seeing the recording. I am Sarah Kroger. It is lovely to have you here with us tonight. I am going to actually piggyback on a theme from Kelly's Challenger Zoom that was just this last week. I hope that you at this point have listened to that if you weren't on live. It was really, really good. And it was one of those situations where, I mean, it had a PowerPoint, which was like top notch, let me just tell you. But I was listening. I listen to personal development while I'm milking my goats and while I'm taking a shower. Those are the two times when I can listen to things most uninterruptedly. And so I had to listen to it in chunks, which is never great, but it was so good that I kept coming back to it. And I actually want to go back again to parts of it where I can take notes. But I'm not going to recap, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about how that same theme applies to us as coaches and how we can maximize on some of our struggles versus letting them weigh us down. So the one thing that Kelly mentioned really early on in the Challenger Zoom was this concept of a plateau. That was the whole topic of the call, right? And she said there were two definitions of a plateau. And the one that struck out to me was this concept of like a physical geological plateau, you know, a height where that you know, drops off. But if you look at it backwards, like you climb up steeply and then you level off, right? And you are looking out, if you're standing on a plateau, you are looking out from a high vantage point. And the cool part about that is it's a perspective shift, right? So when we hit a plateau, it's usually a point of frustration in our physical journey where you have worked and worked and worked and worked and worked, and you, in your view, you've stopped making progress. However, if you shift that perspective, you cannot be on a plateau until you are higher than the place where you started. And that was the part that Kelly talked about on the call, where like you're climbing on your journey and you have made progress and then it levels off. You're not on a plateau on day 2. That's not a plateau. That's just the beginning of your journey. You haven't made any progress yet. And I feel like the same thing is true for coaching. So for most of us, we came into this journey as challengers, looking for some individual, personal, physical transformation. We wanted to lose weight. We wanted to gain muscle. We wanted to feel better, whatever it was. Usually it had a number associated with it and an appearance, like an image ideal that we wanted to shoot for. There was a particular part of our body that we wanted to change, or a particular number on the scale that we wanted to change. And that's how we came into this journey. And you start going through it, and you, again, if you do the work, it works. You get some results, you get some progress, you get some forward momentum. And then you come to the point where you either want to continue with this and not pay as much for it, and or you want to help other people on their journeys and bring other people the same kind of progress and results that you were getting, right? Those are the two entry points for coaching, if you will. But as you're going along, it struck me, this concept of a plateau for our business too. When you're plugging away on your business and you are trying to grow, whether you're growing your team or you're growing your own sales as a coach, or you've got financial goals, or whatever it is that you're doing, sometimes in your journey, you level off. You're going along and you level off. And we can talk about all the reasons why that is, and I'm going to hit on a couple of them. But a lot of times I really think that remembering how you shifted from challenger to coach and what you felt like at the beginning of being a challenger can really serve you in your journey as a coach as well. The first thing that I want to mention when you're talking about this perspective shift as a coach, and you're talking about, you know, growing your business or making some money or having some people come alongside you that you can help, is the idea of treating it like a business. And when you're treating it like a business, whatever level of business it is you're shooting for, it is important to treat it like a business versus just this side thing that you kind of sort of maybe do to get a discount. And the reason for that is, if you think back again to your challenger journey, when you're dealing with a challenger, when you were a challenger, now when you're dealing with your challengers, if you're talking about the challenger who says they're going to try or they're going to give it a shot or see how it goes, that person is not likely to get the same results as the person who is committed to the process, who says, yes, I am going to do this. I'm going to follow this program. I've printed off my calendar. I have my Shakeology. I have a meal plan. They don't have to do it perfectly, but someone who is committed to a process versus the person who says, I'll give it a try and see what happens. We all kind of internally not roll our eyes in a heartless way, but we know what happens at the end of that. That 9 times out of 10, that person falls off, disappears, runs into a stumbling block and stops posting. Something happens in their life, because something always happens in life. And that's not the person who doubles down. That's the person who treats this like dead weight and cuts it out. Instead of the person who has their calendar printed, they're checking in each day, they're doing all the things. And for you as a business owner, it works the same way, because you're going to run into struggle in life. If you're plugging along in your journey and something happens, like the coronavirus or the end of the school year or your family getting sick or going on vacation or anything, and that puts a complete halt to your business, you're not going to progress. You're not going to increase your level of income. You're not going to increase your team. And yeah, like Angie said in the chat, it becomes the excuse to not stay on track. You're out, right? And you don't have to be in it for the Million Club. You don't have to be shooting for top 10 coaches, but you do have, like, when you become a coach, you are telling people by becoming a coach that you're here and that you're going to support them and that you are going to help them. Not that you're going to know everything, not that you're going to be perfect or be an expert, but that you're going to be in it with them. And so by treating it like a business, you are stepping into that mentorship role. We have leaders on our team, and you can grow and step into leadership if that's part of what you're calling. But regardless of what level of business you want to have, you walk into that mentorship role where you are saying, you're just putting on a different coat, basically. And you're saying, I am a couple of steps beyond where you are and reaching back to take your hand. And my hand is going to be there. It might be imperfectly there. I might struggle. I might have patches where I am not as on fire as I was before, but I am going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm committed to fighting to dig back in those seasons when I'm struggling. Because you guys, your team is a gift, and Beachbody itself is a gift. And if you aren't committed to running it like a business, and I never want this to be a pressure where you have a quota or an expectation of what you need to hit. Whatever it is that you've decided in terms of your level of business, truly, this statement is true regardless of where you are. So for me, I am building a full-time income. I'm not making a full-time income yet, but I'm treating this business like that. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But I am viewing this business as a full-time income. And when I say that, and we're going to talk about this piece in a little bit, that does not mean I work 40 hours a week on Beachbody, right? It does not. I guarantee you it does not. But it does mean that I take it that seriously. And sometimes when we're talking as coaches, whether it's in a thread or in the team or whatever, and someone talks about like when they're going to work their power hour or how they did or didn't do it, and it's like, look, if you were working a away from home job where you had to clock in and clock out, is whatever you are dealing with something that you would call off work for? if you're sick, like Angie's daughter got married, obviously she took some time off of work for that, you know, which she would have in any kind of a job. She closed her business for a couple of days, for a week, whatever it was, but planned for it, right? She set up all of her challengers. She closed all of her business, told them what was going on, closed it, and then reopened it again, right? If you have a sick day because you're not well, you don't work that day. Actually, most of us probably do still kind of check in with people even when we're sick, but you might not do all of your business activities the same way, but you're still taking it seriously and you're still being present. You're still communicating with your people. If you don't, to whatever degree you've decided, you are keeping someone stuck in their before picture on their couch. If you are not sharing this gift, you are saying, I'm okay with you staying miserable. I know what would help you because it's helping me and I'm watching it help all the other people around me. But you are stuck licking the inside of the Dorito bag, and I'm okay with that. You don't have to make it your personal mission to hunt down the millions of people who are licking the inside of the Dorito bag. But I guess I want to ask you, like, why wouldn't you? It was really something that I was working through, worrying about how I would handle this multitude of people if I really took this on. Like, I was overwhelmed at the thought of, like, how would I handle all of these people if I'm going to say, let's grow this big. Let's really do this. I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I can barely keep the 6 kids in my house alive and can barely check on the people that I'm already checking on and the needs of the coaches on my team. And when I get a bunch of messages all at once and blah, 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 blah. And how am I going to handle 1,000 challengers? And I had somebody say to me once, they're like, wait, you're not willing to just like learn how to use a new spreadsheet or something? And I was like, ooh. You know, like the reason I was not willing to reach out to more people at that phase was really because I was afraid of how I was going to keep track of them all. That there's a system for that. Or frankly, if I really do have that many challengers, I can hire somebody to make a spreadsheet for me. Now, I don't right now. I don't have that need. So I don't hire somebody to do that. But I just wanted to give you some perspective and drop that bit of a bomb on you and say, like, you have to ask yourself, if I really believe that this is helping me, I can say to you that this is saving my life, that this is changing the lives of my children, that this is changing their future families. But I don't want to share it with people. For whatever reason, I don't want to work that hard. I'm nervous about how it will be received. I'm afraid of what people will say. I don't really know how to build a team. Whatever those excuses, those reasons that run through your head, you have to ask yourself, I mean, I'm willing to share my favorite lipstick color, but I'm not willing to share something that's going to change somebody's life. So I just want you to think about what it is that has kept you from really digging in and treating it like a business. Sorry, I talked around my notes and I'm trying to stay on track because Angie's got a hot date. No, I'm just kidding. So as you're going through this, when we've done this exercise before where you talk about, you know, on the sides of the paper, and Kelly just went through it with us too, where it's, you know, before I was a coach and now, before I was a challenger and now, that kind of stuff, all of those things that you said about the before, you know, the sitting on the couch licking the Doritos bags or jumping from quick fix to quick fix, or, you know, all of those kinds of things. When you are not sharing and not treating it like a business, you are keeping that life-saving opportunity from them. And when you go through those exercises, we do it to help you know what to post on social media, but it can also be a motivator to remind you of who it is that you really are talking to. So I'm going to give you a couple of things that you can be doing that most of you probably are doing some of, but I'm hoping, I mean, I'm looking around at who's on the call live, and you guys are really people who are committed to this business. And I'm going to tell you, being on the team call is part of committing to this as a business. And so when I look around, I'm seeing the faces of a lot of people who are committed to this as a business already, which does not mean if you miss the team call that you're a horrible person, because life happens. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why it's recorded, because we understand that stuff happens. But make it a part of your week. And if you can't be on live, set an appointment for when you're going to listen to it. So I told you on Sunday, I wasn't on the Challenger Zoom on Sunday night because we had some things going on in our family and I wasn't on the call, but I made a point to listen to it. I listened to half of it Monday morning and half of it this morning so that I could, I mean, A, it was awesome. And B, it is part of my habits as a business owner, right? When I was a teacher, I went to the staff meetings because that's what you do as a teacher, even if it wasn't like super exciting for me, or even if I felt like they were talking about something I'd heard before, or even if I, thought I might spend my time differently. I have never been on one of our calls where I didn't come away with a new idea. Even if it was something that I'd heard before, I heard it in a new way, or a new thing got mentioned, or I got to spend time with these people who have been part of changing my life. Even just earlier this week, I was on a leadership call for the Cathedral Builders. Once you hit Emerald, you're eligible to be part of the Cathedral Builders, where we dig in a little bit deeper on these things that I'm getting ready to mention to you. But we have two options for being on that leadership call. And the second option, there were only 3 of us on the call. It was me and Kelly and Angie, and it was just like a tiny little powwow, just the 3 of us. But it filled my cup because those 2 have been on my journey with me for so long that when I'm struggling, they can remind me of where I was and where I am now. And so tapping into this, even though I was on the call they're my friends, so I enjoy being on the call with them, but it was an appointment on my calendar, right? I got on the call because it was an appointment on my calendar. It was something that I said I was going to do, so I did it, but I got so much more out of it than just checking a box on a staff meeting. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's always part of it. But here are some things that you can do to treat your business like a business. They're very simple, they're very unintimidating, and they will take you to that next point in your goals. So if your goal is to grow a business, or to have a paycheck every week, or to rank advance, or for me, I'm trying to build a full-time income out of this business. My husband is retiring from the Army in August. He got his date. It is happening. We knew it was happening, but now we know when it's happening. And so I am building a full-time income. Probably not between now and August, but that's like, we're on that road, right? And so these are the things that I do in order to build the consistency for that. So number 1, have open hours. Hours when your business is open and hours when your business is closed. You have to have both. It's not just whenever. It needs to be reliable. It does not need to be the same thing every day, and you don't necessarily have to post it on a sign the way you would on a storefront. Like if you were running a restaurant and you just opened whenever you felt like it would hurt your business. You wouldn't be able to stay open. You have a little more flexibility with this, and you don't have to tell the whole world that you're working between, 9 and 11 on Tuesday, and it doesn't have to be all the same time, but you have to have here, like, I am open now and I am closed now, right? Some of it can fall in a rhythm of your day and be flexible. Some of it can be scheduled. For people who work full time, it's really hard to be flexible about when it is that you're going to work, because then it just doesn't happen. For me, my natural flow of the day is that I can work around 11 in the morning, because that's when the kids seem to be a little less crazy. And I can work around like 1 to 4 in that window, because that's kind of the window in which the baby's napping and everybody else is either playing outside or watching a movie or something like that. Those are 2 natural pockets of time. But what that means is I need to be not working when I'm not working, for 2 reasons. 1, it's honor to your family and the people around you, because they don't know when I'm looking at my phone, just scrolling through Instagram, and when I'm answering messages. So it just looks like I'm always on my phone. And if I want them to not interrupt me when I'm working, then they need to know when I'm not working. And they need to have me not working. If any of us have ever complained in our own jobs or about a spouse who like never can leave work at work, we need to do that too. Jen just made a really good question in the comments, and I will address that in just a second. Let me say the second reason, because it kind of goes along with that, and then I'll make sure I answer that. The second reason is so that other people will treat your business like a business. Because if I am available to casually snap answer a question whenever, then it's just hanging out with friends. Versus if I am taking it seriously and this is my work time and this is when I'm answering work-related questions and this is not, then they will take it more seriously. Other people will take it more seriously. So for the benefit of those of you who are watching the recording, Jen's question in the comments in the chat was, how about if people only want to talk at night and can't talk at another time? You've got a couple of options. You can absolutely only answer them during your work time. And it might take a little bit longer and you might lose some back and forth. You can make a choice. Sometimes if I'm working and I'm sending messages, I try not to answer messages when I'm sending messages. But sometimes if there's somebody that that I really want to talk to or that I've had a hard time getting a hold of, I will shift gears and I will talk to that person. But let me ask you this. I'm going to rent a dumpster to purge our garage and our basement. And I called a company at 6:30 in the evening and they didn't answer. And they called me back this morning because they were closed when I called. And that's okay. I didn't expect them to just stay at work all night because that's when I was free to call them. I left them a message and they called me back. It so happens that they called me back when I was doing a million other things. And right now was when I remembered that they called me back this morning and they're closed again. So I'm gonna have to call them tomorrow. And it's gonna take a little bit longer to do business, but I'm still gonna call them back. And so I have two things to say about that. One, we are dealing with people here and we are dealing with relationships. And so sometimes there's a little bit of a blurred line about that. But if you are treating this like a business and you are looking down the line to what your business that you anticipate continually growing is going to look like 3 years from now, you cannot answer every message when it comes in. You can't, because you're going to have thousands of people on your books. And you will have to have, now I'm not telling you have to have thousands of people on your books, but if you help a couple people every month and you're still here a couple years from now, you're going to get to a large number of people. And you cannot just be available. You are not their personal assistant. You are not their 24/7 care person. You're really not even their, like, you are their one-on-one coach and you do have a one-on-one relationship with people, but they are not your only client and you are not 100% theirs 100% of the time. You are entering into a relationship where you are agreeing to listen to their goals and work through it with them, set them up with the tools that they need and provide a group for them to connect with, and then check on them periodically. You also are not agreeing to like give out your personal cell phone number to every stranger on the street who wants to do 21-day fix. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to be 100% available to those people. And so there was another question in there that I'm going to pop on to real quick because it's a good one. Like, how does it work with Insta stories? And that's where it feels blurry for me. There are a million people smarter than me who talk about branding and social media posting and all those kinds of things. But you are still in control of your schedule. You're still in control of your schedule. And if you see something cute, like tonight we were out in the garden and I saw something cute and I whipped up my phone and I posted about it on Insta stories. But I also could have not, and the world would have kept spinning. You know, like sometimes I get caught up in this idea of like, oh my gosh, if I don't post about this, then they're not going to know and it's going to be terrible. And it's like, really? Or it'll be fine. And like, I'll post about it later or not, and it'll also be fine. Like you want to be consistent and intentional, but you can also look at plenty of other people who are not posting a minute by minute of their day, and their businesses are doing fine as well. But back to Jen's question about people who can only chat with you at night, there could be someone, I have had it happen one time, but I've had it happen where someone was like, you didn't answer me fast enough, so I bought from somebody else. And I'm like, honestly, I didn't say this, but I'm thinking I probably dodged a bullet, because if this person needed me to reply to them to purchase something right then and there, what would that person have been like as a challenger? That person would have expected me to be there 100% of the time. I've also gone through it with my coaches too, where someone sends me a message and I miss it, and I feel really guilty because they asked me a question and I didn't answer it, and they were working and I wasn't. But you know what? We have a whole freaking team. And so if you message me with a question and I am not working, or I miss, like, I'll be really honest, if somebody messages me from my team with a question and I see it on my phone, I'm going to answer it. Like, I am, most likely. But if I happen to not be looking at my phone and I miss it, they can message in the team too, or they could message someone else. The other benefit is, like, right now I'm looking at Andrea and Beth are on the call, and they're both in the Cathedral Builders because they're both Emerald coaches and have decided to dig in more. So they have the benefit, they can message me, or they can message the team, or they also have access to a Cathedral Builders thread that is people who are dug in. And at any given time, one of us is probably working. Do you know what I mean? We're not all working at the same time. And I guess if you're up at 3:00 in the morning, you might be on your own, but like, chances are throughout the day, somebody is working or looking at their phone and can answer that question. So like, it kind of gets some pressure off of me. I don't have to be everything to everybody all the time. And I wouldn't in any other business. And the truly high performers, this came up in the chat too, any true high performer, they don't look at their phone for the first several hours or the last several hours of a day. I know people, Summer Tucker talks about, like, she takes Facebook off her phone every day at a certain time and puts it back. I don't know if she still does. She did for a while. Took it, logged out, took the app off her phone because it was too much of a temptation and she was trying to break that habit. Took it off her phone. So then she could have her phone and snap a picture if something truly amazing that she couldn't bear to not post about happened, but didn't feel, and she's got, like, how many people does she have in her downline? Like 15,000 people, coaches, 15,000 coaches in her downline. She is not available to everybody. And if I message her about a business thing, it might be 2 days before she gets back to me. She does get back to me. She always gets back to me, but it's not instant. And I also don't think she's an awful person because of it, because I know that she takes her work very seriously, and she has hours that she's working and hours that she doesn't. But you need to have time when you are working. And we can talk about how many power hours you should do in a week, what the ideal number would be for consistency's sake. But I'm going to tell you, it's more than 3. But if you're starting and you're doing 3 power hours a week, 3 power hours a week, every week, is better than doing 7 in a row and then nothing for 2 weeks. So you just have to decide. I would tell you, and other people might tell you something different. I would tell you, for consistency's sake, no matter what level of business you're building, you need 4 or 5 power hours in a week. Because if you're only doing 2 or 3, let's say you work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and someone messages you on Wednesday and Friday you don't get back to them, and it's all the way again until Monday before you get back to somebody, that's an awfully long time. And that really does make it difficult to keep up a conversation. So I would tell you that you need to be doing 4 or 5 power hours a week. But if that is more and blowing your mind, and you're doing 3 right now, rock those 3. And then when you're comfortable with that, see if you could add a 4th. Because I really would rather you do 3 every week than like 6 and get burned out and do nothing, and work your way up to something more than that. And like I said, being closed, it shows people that you're a business and you're not just a book club or a group of people hanging out and being social. It's not just hanging out with my friends, and if I message them, it's great, and if I don't, it's not. Because I message with my friends throughout the day, all day long. And frankly, I need to be better about putting my phone away, period, regardless of who I'm talking to. Because like I said earlier, the other people in my life don't know whether I'm messaging with my friend or my challengers. They don't know that because it's all the same behavior. But I did have a woman that I was forming with who we were talking about doing all this, and she said to me after I had invited her, she's like, I don't really want to spend $200 to hang out with my friends. And I was like, well, I wouldn't want to spend $200 to hang out with my friends either. And I went back and I was like, that's not what we're doing. This is a business and I'm providing this service, and you are getting these tools, and, so like, I have to treat it like a business. It's not just social hour. Do you know what I mean? So that was number 1. Number 2 is make sure that you have ROI tasks, return on investment. If you are working, you need to be doing things that are a return on your investment. There's a time and a place for pretty graphics. And I say this as someone who gets sucked into the Canva situation. I know Angie just said that. I get sucked into Canva like nobody's business, and you're scrolling looking for the perfect checklist. That's just the perfect one. And you scroll through like hundreds of templates to find the perfect one. And suddenly it's 3 hours later and you've not invited a single soul, right? Guess how much money you make using Canva graphics? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't, honestly, Allison, at your point right now, there is no reason for you to do that, because there's plenty of us who get suckered into making pretty graphics, and you can just use ours for a while. I mean, in all seriousness, like they are so pretty. And there is something to be said for a nice graphic, for a nice picture, for a nice whatever, but not ahead of those return on investment things. So what are ROI tasks? They are anything that you can do that moves your business forward. We've called it following the recipe, add, connect, invite, follow up. That's what a power hour is. Anytime you sit down and you do add, connect, invite, follow up, that's your power hour. Regardless, it shouldn't take you an hour, but that's what that is. Those are return on investments. You are adding people so that they are seeing your content and seeing you and seeing your posts. You are connecting with people so that you're building a relationship, and also so they're seeing your stuff. You're inviting, because if you don't invite, no one will join. And you won't make any money or build any team. And then following up. And I got to tell you, I follow up with people even after they say no. Not a million times and not forever, but at least once. Because there are people who I talk to as a potential challenger, and that's the only reason I'm talking to them. And that is also okay and not scammy, because I'm not looking for 11,000 new best friends. I'm looking for people that I can help on their health and fitness journey. And that might be the reason I'm talking to you. But I do really care about you and your goals. And I had a woman who was messaging about inviting, or I was messaging about joining, and I invited her, and she had a hiccup. It was an excuse, but it was a hiccup because something was wrong with her puppy, and she was waiting to see whether or not her puppy was going to have surgery, and she was worried about the cost. And so she said kind of a temporary no to me, right? But I still followed up with her one more time and asked her how her puppy was, because I really do care. And I really want her to know that I was listening to her. Now, I do not follow up with her like 3 times a week for infinity. Just that one time, because I'm a decent human being, like, because I care about you and what's going on in your life. And it's not like, oh, nope, we're out of here, because they might come back another time, and I want to leave that door open. But following up really has to do with when you are, do you have something to say, Angie?
Yeah, you said something about power hours, how they shouldn't take an hour. And after trying to work with Bruce to get through a power hour, and him having very low numbers and just trying to go through what a power hour was, it takes him a long time.
Okay.
And I find that it takes me a while to get into a groove of actually feeling like I'm in kind of a flow state where I can invite very easily, and I feel like I know what people need and I know what to say. So while in like nuts and bolts version, it doesn't take me an hour, but if I'm really doing a good job, it does take me a full hour to do my power hour. I cannot,
Yeah.
and I just don't want people to feel like what I'm doing isn't enough or I'm not doing it right if they're not getting it in an hour, because I find sometimes that is, it's an expectation that it's going to be just an hour. But if you're doing Insta stories and you're doing your posts and you're doing all the stuff, it actually takes a couple hours a day to piece it all together.
Well, and I think that's a good point, especially the part about being in a groove, that when I am not doing consistent power hours, when I am working, it takes longer. And when I have to go back and find who I was talking to, or if I'm not in a groove about post, even posting takes longer when I'm not in a good groove about it. So I think that's a good point. I also think that there are seasons where I am having deeper conversations with people, or if you're going back and forth with somebody, those things take longer. But I really do think that if you feel like you're spending hours and hours and hours, you need to do a little bit of an assessment and see if you're leaking time anywhere. Um, and look at your numbers, because it is the most important part of that power hour. The biggest ROI is the actual invite. And so if I am forming with a ton of people and not inviting very many, then I'm leaking time somewhere, and I might need to back off my forming numbers so that I have time to change my forming, make it a little deeper sooner and not stay quite a surface level with people for as long, so that I can get to an invite and I can hear their need and know how I can serve them. So back to ROI tasks. Thank you, Angie, for that. Because you're right. Like, it is not a hard and fast. Like, I have heard people say that if you're taking more than 30 minutes to do those 4 things, then you're wasting time. And I think it's a good guideline, depending on the numbers that you're doing. But I also don't want anybody to get hung up on that. Okay. ROI tasks would be that recipe, or the company calls them the vital behaviors, being the product of the product, inviting, recognizing, and doing personal development. And I got to tell you, I think that those vital behaviors are your social media content. When you are being a product of the product, and we need to count nutrition and our nutrition program as much as we do our workouts. It is so much easier to make a TikTok of me making my Energize and show hyperlink stories of me doing my workout than it is for me to talk about nutrition or even about my shake. Like, it's just, I don't know, it just feels more fun to do the other things. But if my goal is to change someone's life, then I have to include the things that have had the biggest impact on me. And the things that have had the biggest impact on me is what I do for the other 23 and a half hours of my day, not the half an hour that I spend. Well, maybe 23 hours, because it takes just as long to make a good TikTok as it does to do my workout, which goes back to the time wasting piece of the puzzle. And that your ROI is that you need to tell your story. People need to know what's happening. Okay. So if you're just showing them the beginning and the end, and you're not telling them about the middle, they can't see themselves in your story. And you can guide them through that. And I think it's just like anything else. The more you do it, it doesn't always get easier to be vulnerable, but it gets easier to tell your story. There are parts of it that you can tell without a lump in your throat anymore, because you've practiced it. And there are pieces that you can tell because you've gotten enough no's from people that you're starting to see what the common objections are. And so you can speak to those common objections in your posts. So if you are handling someone's objection before they've made it, then you're making your job easier. And that does count as a return on investment because you are priming the pump before you've even talked to that person. Jen, what do you mean? How often? Can you either unmute and tell me what you mean or type it up?
How often should you like tell your story?
Oh, I think you should tell your story every day. Multiple times a day. I mean, why would, in all honesty, everything I post is part of my stories. Like my social media is my storefront. It is my storefront. I'm not on social media. I mean, really, I'm not on social media for anything other than telling my story and encouraging people. And even if like gardening isn't necessarily a direct Beachbody advertisement, but it is, we garden because we do things together as a family, because we believe in being outdoors, because we are committed to knowing where our food comes from, because we are trying to be healthy, because we're trying to incorporate more vegetables, because kids will eat what they are participants in. All of those things, all of that is part of my story. All of it points to my overarching purpose. And so like, this is not what this training is about, but when you talk about your like 5 pillars, the 5 things that really make you, you talk about those things. You don't have to talk about all 5 of them all the time, but you talk about them all the time, and you talk about them, a couple of them every day. And so whatever your thing is, so Elizabeth has been talking a lot about sewing lately. That's a hobby. That's a thing that she does, that she enjoys. And she does it out of service. She does it out of enjoyment. She does it out of a honing of a talent. That's all part of her story. It's her being a helper in this season. All of those things are part of her story. Even though someone watching her story, watching her make a mask, isn't necessarily being solicited to buy Shakeology, it's them connecting with her and learning about who she is as a person and feeling identified with her in that. So, you know, Andrea posts a lot about her chickens, and like I know the names of half of her chickens. And so it's all about that. And so sometimes it's people are watching because they want to see when I'm going to post about my pink hair because I made a comment about it. So now they are watching a little more closely to see when I'm ever going to post about it, which would be a never. There weren't any pictures of it. But but it's part of who I am, because people they want to be part of you and your journey, which is why your story is important. And different people are going to connect with you, the full-time mom, full-time worker who is still taking care of themselves. Someone different is going to connect with that and seeing how you do it all in that regards, compared to the person who really likes to garden, or the person who really likes to knit, or the person who has a million kids, or the person who, you know, whatever it is. Yeah, I think you tell your story all the time. Yeah, the more you tell your story, the more you'll find your people. And I think that you're always looking for the person who is where you were yesterday, a month ago, a year ago, 5 years ago. You're always looking for the person who is having the struggles that you have started to work through, because you can speak right into the heart of that person. So like I posted about, I should do this more often because it was a really good post. I think it was like 2 months ago now, about like how hard it is to spend money on yourself. And I used as my example, like your bra that's held on by one last hook because all the rest of the hooks are falling apart. And I guarantee you there were some people who were like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. And they just looked over their noses at me like a peasant because my bra is held together with one hook. But there were so many people who were like, oh my gosh, yes, I pray every time it comes out of the wash that it still is there, that one last hook. Do you know what I mean? Like those people who will basically like toss money out the window for their kids or somebody else, but they can't even buy themselves a new bra, right? And those are the people that you're going to like speak to their heart. And when you're telling your story and you can get specific and vulnerable. It does not mean that you have to like air out all your dirty laundry, just your bra laundry. When you can share that piece, you're going to touch somebody, and they're going to hear you, and they're going to hear themselves in your story. And so you can talk about how you, now I literally do still need to buy new bras because I'm still praying that the hook holds together when I pull it out of the wash. That's a different story. But you can talk to these people who really are struggling to see the value in themselves. I know I did get new leggings. It's bad priorities, but I'm going somewhere with it. From somebody who doesn't value themselves enough to meet their own basic needs, moving into somebody who can laugh about having pig hair. I would never work out. You'll know when it finally goes out because I'll have black eyes. Anyway. I was going to be like heartwarming and seriously here for a minute. Anyway. Going from someone who has a hard time spending any money on themselves and hides in the back of the pictures and all their clothes are like gray and black and dark blue, to somebody who is wearing, joking about having pink hair and wearing literal a whole pink head to toe workout outfit and posting pictures of it. Like, that's a story that someone's going to identify with. That they don't even wear bright colors because they're so unwilling to be seen, to somebody who is gaining in confidence and seeing the value of who they are, right? And when you can tap into that, and that might not be your story. And so that's why you can highlight other people's stories. Like I shared Angie's story today. Kelly did a really good job of sharing Elizabeth's story, which is how I got the idea to share Angie's story the way that I did. Like, it's just, you can share other people's stories and highlight them, and you will catch some people because our team has some common threads. But when you can really tap into your transformation, yes, your weight loss, that is important. Your muscle and strength gaining, that is important. And what you can do physically that you couldn't before is important. And today I talked about how I couldn't jump at all before, and now I can jump, and I can show in my stories, here's me jumping in the midst of my conditioning today. And I can talk about how I couldn't leave the ground before. But what's really special about this versus just like weight loss coffee or something you sprinkle on your food to get magical results, is how this has changed all the other corners of your life, who you are as a person, what your children are going to be exposed to, how their lives are going to be changed, all those kinds of things, and people's feelings of worth. I got a little off in the weeds. So I'm going to go through these last couple really quickly because I want to respect everybody's time, and I've got a little bit of homework. So have ROI tasks, and that's what they are: following the recipe, doing the vital behaviors, all that kind of stuff. Number 3, you must work from a list and follow a BAT. I don't care which one you do, not the Corona BAT, a business activity tracker. There are many, and you can talk to your coach about the right one. The Corona BAT, that's where the coronavirus came from, was a BAT. In theory, really. I mean, it was fabricated, but we don't have to go into that. No, it did come from a lab, but we should probably not go there on a recorded call. Okay, so you must work from a list and you must follow a BAT. I don't care what level of business you are. I don't care which BAT you use. You have to work from a list. Otherwise, you will be chasing squirrels all day long. And I say this like Unit 2 has business activity trackers. You can talk to your coach about which one you should use. There's different ones that serve you at different levels of business, but you need to be using one, especially if you're only working 3 power hours a week, because you will lose people like nobody's business. And it helps you to, if you're working from a list, you can go right back to where you left off and not have to try to remember where you left off. Number 4, you need to go Emerald, period. You do. I don't care what level of business. I don't care if you're a discount coach. You still need to go Emerald, because you having a team that's more than just you makes you take it more seriously, and you're activating another stream of income. When you cycle, I mean, there's no such thing as free money, but it's about as close as free money as you can get. The real beautiful thing is when you and your spouse are both emerald and you cycle twice on the same volume points. We have countless calls on going emerald and what cycling means. Our most recent one that Steph Cram did was incredible. Angie's done a call on going emerald. I've done a call on going emerald. There's plenty of those. So we're not going to talk about that and the intricacies of that, but you need to do it. That's number 4. Number 5, you need to act how you want to feel. Like, write that down and underline it. You need to act how you want to feel. I do understand that you cannot budget with money that you don't have, but you can decide, hey, how would a 5-star diamond handle her business? You can think now, how do I treat my challengers in light of how I will treat my challengers when there are 1,000 of them? Right? It's a little hard when you are still within your friends and family and you're reaching out to draw like business boundaries. But once you've been doing it for a while and you've broken out of that network of people, I truly have the majority of my challengers now. They're not my pre-existing friends anymore. Some of them become my friends. Some of them join my team and become very important people in my life that I am very, very close to. But the majority of my challengers, they are clients in a business relationship. They weren't in my circle of friends before we started working together. And so you certainly can right now start to set up those boundaries in your business and your office hours and all those things. How would you have to handle your business if you were a 5-star diamond? Or if you were a top 10 coach, how would you have to handle your business? And there are pieces of that that you can do now. You can take it just that seriously now. You can treat your work hours just as seriously as you would then. You can do that now. And you need to check the soundtrack in your head. Is what you're saying about your personal journey, is what you're saying about your business, is it, if we were to record that and play it back, would that encourage anybody? How would it be if you sit down to work and you're like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. Like, nobody's going to want to join me. Like, that's not anything that's going to encourage anybody. You need to act how you want to feel, and you need to practice that belief daily. Follow the directions of the people who have what you want. You have to read personal development, said the person who dragged her feet on it for like many years, like 4 years. I just completely ignored the people who told me I needed to do it. And I've made more growth personally. Most of you on this call now at this point, I haven't known for all that long. Truly. I mean, I've known Kelly the longest, and then probably Elizabeth after that. Beth and I knew each other on different teams for a while, but not really, really super well. And everybody else on here I've really met in the last fairly, like, what, year, 2? Okay. I have had more growth as a person in the last 12 to 18 months than in the previous 40 years all put together. Truly, truly have. And it is 100% because of personal development and mindset and being in control of who I let live in my head and kicking some hard people out of my head. Because if those people, and I got to tell you, like, I'm not going to go all the way into the story, but one of the things I realized was a limiting belief came from my dad, who I love, and I still call him daddy, and we had a wonderful relationship, and he loves me, and it's beautiful. And so I didn't look at it as a limiting belief that I had to get rid of, but realizing that there were things that he said that were holding me back out of love, out of protection, out of not wanting whatever he thought was going to hurt me in the process. But it was still holding me back, and I had to evict that from my head. So it doesn't have to be like, you get to pick who lives there, and you get to be very intentional about it. And sometimes it's hard to kick out someone who's lived there for a long time. And it doesn't mean that you don't love them, and it doesn't mean you don't hang out with them. And you know, there have been seasons in my life where my spouse couldn't live in my head. He could live in my house, but he couldn't live in my head. And my dad can't live in my head anymore. I need to pick different people to live in my head. And you have to practice that belief daily, and you have to check it. And I just want to make sure you know that you have not succeeded when you stop having negative voices in your head. And if you have the negative voices, it doesn't mean that you failed in the mindset department, right? They'll always be there. You just recognize them better and you learn to say them out loud. I can't tell you how many texts I have back and forth between me and Kelly where like, I just thought this really dumb thing. I know it's really dumb and I just have to say it. And you can tell me it's really dumb and now it's done. Right? Or in that cathedral builders thread that I was telling you about where we talk about our struggles. That's the point that you get to. It doesn't mean you don't have those struggles. It means that you know who it is that you need to talk to them about. Talk about them too. That was a terrible sentence. I promise I was a better English teacher than that. But you know, you're not going to say it to the person who's like, it's okay. It's okay if you quit. I know it's hard. It's okay if you quit. That's not the person that you tell your struggles to, right? Same thing in your business. So here's your homework. I want you to post in the team page. Somebody's going to get all like business ownery here and start the post. It's not going to be me. Here's your homework. I want you to post in the team page the behaviors that you're committed to for the rest of the month. It could be your personal development, your number of invites every day or week. I would recommend week. I wouldn't push yourself to do it on a certain day. Your personal development, your number of invites, what program you're following, how many power hours you're going to do, what it is that you are going to commit to for the rest of the month. It's May 20th. You have about 10 days that you are going to commit to. That's your homework for tonight. Does anybody have any questions before we finish up? It's okay if you don't.
Is there any update on any of the products that were out, or do we still think it's the 25th that we can start ordering the challenge packs that had Recover in them?
That's the last date that I've heard.
Yeah,
Okay.
I saw somewhere that the packets of some of them might be available, but not the canisters. But the last post I shared was the last one I've seen.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I think there's going to be a lot of people putting in orders that on the 25th. So
Yeah.
I agree. I think that I mean, it's pretty awesome that it has gone out of stock. Like, it's a little frustrating when you're trying to sell things, but one thing I do believe, because I've seen it, is that the company works really hard to fix problems. And so in the past, when we've had problems with a launch or when we've run out of product, they've worked really, really hard to get it going. And so this is the longest that I've ever seen us be out of something, unless it was something like when the pumpkin spice came out that they just truly didn't make enough of, and then that was it. It truly was just gone. But something that's an ongoing product, this is the longest I've ever seen it be not available. And I'm sure it's because of the virus and plants shutting down and all that kind of stuff, and an increase working out from home. So I know that well, I guess I don't know anything. I believe that they are really working to get it going again, but I haven't heard anything else other than the 25th. I wish we could still order and they could send the rest of the pack and just make that one back ordered, but maybe we'll get to that point too. I don't know. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, let's pray. Oh God, you are so good. Thank you for this gift. Thank you for the ability to speak boldly about the ways that you have impacted our lives and the things that we have done that have had an impact on our lives. Thank you for the platforms to speak to a large number of people and the boldness with which to do so. Lord, I'm so grateful for this community. Please wrap these people in the assurance of your love and your protection. Help us to loosen our grip on the things that are holding us back, in the fears and the doubts and the insecurities and the stress. Help us to loosen our grip on that and remember that you care for the birds of the sky and the flowers, and that even when there's a late frost, things still grow. Even when there's a hard year, the animals still have food. And how much more do you care for us? I'm so grateful for this team, God. Thank you for bringing these amazing people into my life. Please help me to serve them well. Help us to see each other's needs and lift each other up so that we can step into the purpose for which we were loved into existence. Please multiply our sleep and our rest. Please multiply our efforts. Turn our little into much. And show us the beauty of what we have to offer. And I ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful night.